everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Audio Roundtable with our friends Pipeline Audio from AIX DSP and Ethan Weiner, the creator of Real Traps. And I gotta say, I was pretty blown away by the response that we got from the last episode where we talked about, converters and how expensive converters really don't make a gigantic difference between the expensive ones and the super cheap ones. There's like about that big a difference. And mic preamps, same kind of thing, unless you're using them, as Ethan said, as fuzz pedals. What you got is probably going to be pretty much what you need. So I'm not sure what was the subject for today, guys, or what are we going to hit up?
I've got a few, but
Sure.
I'm interested to hear what you guys say.
Yeah, Ethan, did you have anything in mind today?
I wasn't prepared to be prepared. Well,
Okay.
I can say a couple of things. As part of my Real Traps affiliation, of course, I stress the importance of acoustic treatment. It's come a long way in the last 20 years since I've been harping on this and pounding the news groups and forums with, hey, this is what you need more than another, microphone. So that's certainly one thing. And also, you mentioned my affiliation with Real Traps, but also I'm here for myself. I do consulting. I have a book out, The Audio Expert. And, so I'm more than just acoustics. And I like to comment on, pretty much anything involving audio and music theory and all that stuff is important. We could even talk about the importance of recording engineers at least knowing basic music theory.
Fair enough. Yeah. Theory. What the fuck is that? No, seriously. Actually, I wanted to touch on the acoustics thing because I think this is something that gets glossed over. I preach this all the time, is that I would rather walk into a room with $3,000 worth of acoustic treatment and $1,000 worth of audio gear as opposed to walking into a room with $30,000 of audio gear and no acoustic treatment.
No kidding.
It's like the stage thing. If the monitor mix is good and the band is happy, front of house is going to be pretty easy because the band's playing well and they're just happy. You just got to turn them up. Yeah. And the same thing with the acoustics. If the acoustics are good, you know what you're hearing. You're not really second guessing all this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Here's a great example. I mean, like exactly what happened in this studio almost 20 years ago now. I originally was in a basement studio. I had horrible low end problems plaguing my mix. Like you play heavy guitars and they just be farting around all over the place, and it'd be a total fucking nightmare. And then, so I thought, okay, let's build a new studio. So we built like a John Sayers reflection-free zone room in here. John Sayers being an acoustician who ran an acoustics forum there for a good almost 20 years. And he just passed away recently, which is really unfortunate. But
no way.
Yeah, John was a really great guy. I'm somebody I really admire. And yeah, I built this room basically around his design. But I still had the low-end problem with the guitars. And that was because I had my cabinets off in my other room, and we had almost like a live-end, dead-end thing set up, and it didn't really work too well. And it's like, I do mixes, and it's like, why are my guitars farting out? Why is this sounding so out of control? And, it plagued me for a couple of years there. And then I broke down and thought, okay, well, why don't I build some proper corner traps and see what happens? Like just basically what Ethan was doing with the Real Traps, I kind of built some home versions of that and put them up in all the corners. And suddenly the low end problem in my guitars just vanished. I could crank the bottom end on my amps with confidence and it wasn't going to fart my mixes out.
Right. Well, yes, that's true. It's never perfect.
No, it's not perfect.
I've had people come to me where they have a room full of treatment. I mean, they have stuff everywhere and they, it's within, plus or minus 2 or 3 dB, 4 dB, 6 dB span from peaks to null through the bass range. And they say, well, can you help me get rid of this null? So I said, well, it's already pretty darn good. I've seen, $1 million studios that are like a lot worse than what you can get in a bedroom with the proper treatment. The goal really, I think, is for getting to be pretty darn good would be a 10 dB window. Because nulls are typically 20 dB deep, sometimes 30, and I'm talking in the bass range. It's different in the mids and highs. Is a different kind of issue and different kinds of problems. But there'll be like 2 or 3 nulls, all at least 20 dB deep. If you can raise those up by 15 dB, That's huge. I mean, that's like, 5 times louder. All of a sudden, all that missing low end, that's what you're talking about, farting out the guitars, because you're not getting any bass, so you boost the bass, and now, the speakers are farting out because you have too much bass. And that's the classic problem, is it sounds good in your room, but it's really bassy elsewhere.
Well, here was the thing. This is what really blew me away, because I did the treatment in the control room. We got all these wonderful hangers and whatnot, and it's pretty flat, but I was still getting the extreme bottom end problem. It wasn't until I actually put the treatment out in the room with all the cabinets, that's when it really made the difference in tightening.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, and that too, of course.
Vintage recorders, we had the chunk chamber that so many of the Flotsam and Sacred Reich and Megadeth albums were recorded in, the guitars.
Okay.
And that was a gigantic room, but what was left of the room for actually being able to move around in and put cabinets in was about 8 feet by 7 feet by 7 or 8 feet high. They're tiny. This is a huge room, and it was just piles and piles and piles of fiberglass in there, and that was that. They called it the chunk chamber because when you palm muted and you stopped palm muting, it stopped.
Okay, so you guys, this room was just built. You guys had cloth covered fiberglass just all over the room and whatnot, and that was just tightening up the guitars. Is that what was going on?
Yeah, it was deep though. I'm talking like some of the fiberglass was about 4 feet deep.
Okay.
Had like a mesh on the floor and a lot of fiberglass under that. It was pretty crazy.
Okay, that sounds like pretty cool. That's probably why I struggled to not be able to get those kind of tones, because I probably didn't have that room. That explains a lot.
So overkill, man.
Sure.
I mean, real estate being what it is, that was a lot of space to give up for that. It's diminishing returns. It's like turning an 11-second car into a 10-second car.
Right.
And then turning a 10-second car into a 9.9-second car.
Yep.
It's about the same amount of exponential money increase,
Yeah, these days, except these days you just buy a freaking Tesla and, over and done.
Oh, yeah.
It just comes that way off the line. But seriously, though, I like what you're saying there about that. And like I said, that kind of explains why I was never quite able to get those tones, because it really comes down to the room your cabinet is reacting in. And for me, it was a night and day difference. I was like, holy shit, I couldn't believe it. Like, my licks are finally starting to translate. So my point being is, when you're looking at doing your studio, not only think about the room you're mixing in, but the room you're going to be actually recording the instruments in as well, because that's going to have a huge factor on the overall effect of your mixes.
That's a good point, because a lot of instruments, acoustic instruments, string quartet instruments, cellos, violins, but acoustic guitars too, and upright bass, you can't close mic those like you can a guitar cabinet. You can't put the mic 3 inches from the F-hole or 3 inches from the bridge. It'll be all boomy or woofy, or it'll be all trebly. You have to get 2, 3, 4, 5 feet away, and when you do that in an untreated room, now all of a sudden it sounds off mic and boxy and distant and hollow and all those words. Assuming a typical bedroom-sized recording space. So absolutely, absorption and or diffusion, if the budget allows, is absolutely needed in recording rooms as well. I have a very large room here in my home studio. It's 33 feet front to back and 18 feet wide. I have a 12-foot peak ceiling, so I can record like small orchestras in here, and I have enough treatment that I can get the mics farther away, closer to whatever amount of ambience or whatever is needed to capture those instruments.
I'm jealous. Yeah, I'm in a 20 by 24 garage. It's a little tight in here. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of people are in a 10 by 12 bedroom.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of people are in 10, 15 by and worse, of course, would be like 15 by 15 by 8 or 16 by Then you got it's square. The ratio, the dimensions are the same or 2 to 1, and that just makes even worse problems.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Pipe. What were you going to say?
Yeah, when it comes to the recording room acoustics themselves, one of the ones that I used to see all the time was, and I don't know if they were actually aware of it, but drummers were pretty gun shy about playing the way they thought they were supposed to play, because the reflections that came back at them were so insane in certain cases. Like, if it's really long and they hear this big gunshot from their snare, they love that. But if it's these weird tubby things that come bouncing back at them every time they hit their toms, they stop hitting their toms. You could get a worse performance out of somebody psychologically if they don't think they're allowed to play the way they're supposed to play, or if they don't even think about allowed, it's just that they hear weird things. They're like, oh, I'm not going to do that then. And we have a lot of trapping in our drum tracking room, and to me, it makes a big difference to how they feel like playing. They don't really feel restricted by these weird tubby frequencies that they feel in the practice rooms all the time.
Well, let me mention something about that too, because a lot of times people say, well, I don't want my recording room to be totally dead, but you really do. If it's a small room, if it's a bedroom size space or even a little bigger, you really do. You can if you capture a perfectly clean recording with absolutely no ambience, it might not sound good in the room, but the drummer is wearing, or whoever is wearing, headphones, and you can add a little reverb to the headphones that's not recorded, just part of the monitoring, so they get a nice experience and they can hear something good. And then you can add a much better quality ambience and reverb stage preset, for that ambient sound, wow, it sounds like right in the room, or or a plate. And you can add that with much better quality than what you're going to get in the live sounding small bedroom. So dead is really where it's at for recording rooms, at least small rooms.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Now you really got me thinking. Yeah. Anyway, Ethan, you were saying you do some consulting as well. Is that like consulting for studio design?
Well, I'm 73 years old. I'm trying to be retired. I have more projects and more ideas than I have time for. I'm going to get a patent this week on a product that's kind of still top secret until the patent goes through. But,
wow.
And this is I'm cramming like 14 op amps into a circuit board that's like, this big. So it's all ultra miniature stuff. So I've been working on that for a couple of months. So I have lots of stuff. The consulting I do is actually mostly acoustic. Most of the guys that are serious acousticians that you see in the groups who work them, they won't talk to you for less than $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and some of them like $10,000. The really famous ones, they won't even talk to you for less than that. And there's a real need for expert advice that students can afford. So I offer what I call flat rate consulting for $200. It's a generous hour, and it doesn't all have to be in one shot. It can be over multiple phone calls or emails or whatever. So that's the consulting I do. But I also do, other stuff. I will answer questions on, electronics and really anything with audio and music. I mentioned music before. I did a music theory video series on YouTube. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes long. It's a complete college level education in music theory, and it's free. It's right up there on YouTube.
Oh, cool. Right on. Now, the reason I ask is because hopefully sometime next year I'm going to start building a new studio, either on site here as an addition, or real estate's going to come down to something reasonable. I hope, fingers crossed, because unfortunately real estate's gone through the roof where I live. And it's gotten really, really out of control. And there's just, I can't see it being sustainable. So I'm hoping there's going to be something coming available next year that I'm going to be able to move into, because I'm just out of space here.
I help people with stuff like that. Where I stop short is I won't design a room. I don't have any CAD programs. I just never got up to speed on CAD. I'm not an architect. Even though I know all about sound isolation, that sometimes requires somebody to actually be there to look at the structure, to look and lift up the ceiling tiles and see if the wall between the rooms goes all the way to the, So I won't do a complete studio design. But I answer questions, and most people just have questions. It's how do I treat the room? I have two different rooms. Which is a better room to set up in? I got 2 bedrooms. Which one should I use? Where should I put my speakers? So it's usually that kind of stuff.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting project. Obviously, I'm going to document the whole thing. It's going to be a cool video series, but just finding the right spot,
start to finish. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's like I came this close to getting a church last fall. And I got outbid, and it was a nice size. It wasn't gigantic, but it wasn't tiny either. It was just right. It was like right out in the middle of nowhere. I could have cranked everything up nicely, and I had some nice rooms downstairs that would have been good for amps or whatnot. But I could have definitely had a control room and a couple of drum sets in the live room, like no problem. Almost. It would have been great. But I was thinking, doing weekly heavy metal sermons, it would have been hilarious.
Roll.
Yeah, that would have been so much fun. But yeah, housing market being what it is, I got outbid by $100,000. So yeah, acoustics definitely a huge thing. Once again, yeah, real traps, are a nice off-the-shelf product you can get. But you can also build something very similar yourself. If all you need is a little bit of effort, and you can do that.
Yeah, if Ethan, if you haven't seen it, Glenn's got a video where he takes the drywall hangers and tin snips and makes some little frames and actually goes outside for one of the videos and puts together some traps.
Yeah. It was a pretty interesting experience, especially, doing it before and after and just seeing how much it tightened up the room with like a drum set. Of course, all the armchair experts come on. Oh, well, it doesn't do anything below blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, if you listen to the playback and take everything above 500 hertz, believe me, you can hear a pretty significant change of what's going on. But then again, this is before you mentioned that measurement program you were talking about. What was that one called again?
Room EQ Wizard.
Oh no.
Room EQ Wizard. Okay.
REW, Room EQ Wizard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Yeah.
Still got to do that and do some tests and whatnot on a few pieces of gear and whatnot. Here's an interesting point. Something a little bit off base, and I heard this from a friend who's going to remain somewhat anonymous. DSP processing, EQs, compressors, that kind of thing in software. Do any of them actually sound different?
Say that again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Like, like EQs and compressors, like VST type processors, plugins, are they actually going to sound different from one another, or is it all just fancy window dressing?
Well, I could tell. You go ahead, Aaron, and then I'll comment.
All right. Yeah. This is where I spend most of my time. There are a lot that are window dressing, but there are differences. I think if you guys or if anybody out there has not seen Dan Worrell's videos, what's wrong with stock plugins, what's wrong with stock EQs, what's wrong with stock compressors, whatever.
Okay.
He goes through what the differences are in a lot of things. And one of the ones you'll notice in actually in our plugins and some of the others, we have decramped EQs, for instance. Mm-hmm. Some people don't like that. Some people like what they used to call digital EQs, where as you get near Nyquist, they cramp up. Mm-hmm. Some people don't like that. So there's a lot of choices out there regarding that. When it comes to things that intentionally distort or resonate, like Scott Stillwell's, what is it called? One of his EQs does this on purpose, Vibe EQ.
Okay. Yep.
And there's other ones. There's exciters you could consider EQs. Those things are distorting and stuff. But if you are doing the standard RBJ, the cookbook EQ that was floating around the internet for a while, that's what Re-EQ is based on, for instance. And you'll see a million plugins out there that are just RBJ EQs, and they got different pictures on them. And then that would be window dressing. But there are so many different things you can do. And Same thing with the compressors. Like, there's a lot of talk about all this vintage this and that with compressors, but even just the basic ways they work, the way the detector works, what the detector's listening to has so much to do with what people assume a compressor is doing. Like, if you change the detector, what the detector's listening, like changing the filters on it and stuff, you can get more difference to a lot of people on like ABX testing than between like an opto circuit versus a FET circuit or whatever, just because it's listening more to the low end or it's listening more to the high end and stuff. It's pretty incredible what things you wouldn't think would make any difference to the perception of a compressor actually do.
Okay.
The detector is a big part of that. The attack and release curves, the way the knee works. There's a lot of difference, but your friend's point is probably that there's a lot of the same stuff stamped with different pictures, and he's right. There's a lot of that.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, and I agree about the compressors being more different. And I don't know if they listen to more highs and lows, but certainly some might use an RMS detector, which looks at the average level, which of course has a time-based component, as opposed to the peak level, which is a different thing. You have so that would certainly affect how they sound. And with both the compressors and the EQ, whether they have saturation and other kind of stuff like that really is separate and not related to the core thing. It seems like every new plugin I see has saturation. Like, I just got the current issue of Mix magazine. I think there were like 3 different things being reviewed, and each one has overdrive, and there's an article that I did for Audio Express magazine, because you don't have to spend $4,000 for tubes and transformers to get subtle distortion. You can do it with 50 cents worth of resistors and a couple of diodes. And there's an article I did for Audio Express magazine listed on my website articles page that shows exactly how to do that. But the EQs, there's two kinds of EQs. There's the linear phase and the non-linear phase. I forgot what it's called. I should know.
Minimal phase.
Right. And that one has pre-echo, pre-ringing, which is, to me, a problem. I would only use linear phase equalizers. I know I've heard some mathematical explanations for why the others are better in some situations, but mostly the EQs are the same. I might have mentioned this in our last roundtable. Sound on Sound magazine did a fabulous article. I'm sorry, no, that wasn't Sound on Sound. That was the Mike Preamp article. There's an article that's out there that I can get a link to. I don't have it in front of me here, where a fellow took 30 different plug-in EQs, and he got them all to null. If they're true parametric, where you can adjust the boost, the cut, and the Q, then they're all going to be pretty much the same. More so than the compressors anyway. I think that the reason your mix sucks isn't because you don't have this or that plug-in. The reason your mix sucks is because you don't have acoustic treatment and you just need a little more experience.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, the reason your mix sucks, you're absolutely right, isn't because you have the latest plug-in. It's because you don't have the right source. Or you didn't mic it correctly. Right. Maybe your mics suck. When it comes, say, to recording drums, people ask you, what mic should I get? I'm like, the absolute best ones you can afford. Don't skimp on your drum mics.
Right.
Because, a great drum mic it doesn't have to be super expensive. You just got to be smart about it. You don't have to spend $400 on your tom mics. You can get them for $99 a piece if you know which ones to get.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
There's a pretty crazy couple videos I did on my channel where I bought this. It was on Amazon. It said $89 or $99 Pile mic drum set.
Oh, God,
and I put them out there, put a good drummer on there, and it sounded pretty damn good.
Yeah, the Piles actually aren't half bad.
Surprised.
The overheads are a little spitty, but some of the closer mics aren't bad. I've tried some of the lower cost ones. The ones Toman puts out.
It's probably the same thing, the T-Bones or whatever.
Yeah, the T-Bones. Yeah, the T-Bone drum mic set isn't actually half bad. The overheads are a little harsh, but the actual close mics are pretty good. My personal favorite for best bang for the buck tom mic ever is the Lewitt 340, which is $99 and is pretty much about as good as a 421. That's what I keep telling everyone to get. That's the whole thing. It's all a lot of people watch this are beginners, so really don't know what they should be looking at and whatnot. That's kind of the thing. But ultimately, room treatment's probably the most important thing you're gonna need to do. Probably the single most important investment you can make in your studio.
Yeah, but that point you brought about a noob maybe not knowing what mic to buy. That's where I seem to get kicked off of most forums and spend a lot of my time on, is that I hate when people tell noobs they got to buy some $5 billion thing. And I always bring up that example of when they ask about a pickup and then they say, oh, you got a mahogany body in your guitar, you can't use that pickup. You got to buy this other thing. The same thing happens with mics and stuff. They always tell them, oh, you got to buy this mic. You have to use this mic. And I'm like, do they really have to? And real quick, as a disclaimer, just for your audience who had brought this up 5 million times, these aren't sunglasses. These are my progressive prescriptions, so I need these to see. So, not sunglasses.
No, that's great. I mean, that's the thing that blows me away. I mean, I just demoed a new mic from Austrian Audio that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. I'm coming out first day A&M. Very affordable, stunning sound, just amazing. You can get a truly phenomenal mic for not a lot of money these days. I mean, so many brands are doing them. I mean, Lewitt, Roswell, Lawton, just to name a few.
I'm a big fan of the Audio Technica stuff. I haven't been kicked off any forums, but I've gotten a lot of heat from some newbie will be asking, so I got $600 for a mic or whatever, and I'll say, well, if you get the Audio Technica 2020, it's basically a U47 for $100, and boy, does that piss people off.
if you watch Vern Grainer, he runs a lot of the shows for the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, like Atheist Experience, all that stuff. The stuff he does with 2020s when he doesn't know that one of the guests is actually going to be playing guitar or music or whatever, and it's the same mic sitting in the same position on the desk, and yet he comes up with these killer guitar recordings out of this. It blows me away. And that's the 2020. He's just like, well, I can find these anywhere. So I figured out how to use them, and that's what I'm going to put up here. And it's like $100 mic.
Yeah, okay, so the AT2020, you're saying it's as good as a U47.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's flat, it's clear, it's got very low distortion. It sounds fantastic on anything you put it on, so yeah, there you go. And I've had all of those. You know, I had a Tube 47 that then I had to convert to FET when the tube went. This was in the 80s. I've had U87. I've had all the microphones when I used to do this professionally. So I'm not just guessing. I have a pair of Audio-Technica 4033s that are great. They're more expensive, but when I bought them, they didn't have the 2020.
All right, yeah, I'm just looking it up right now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to order one because you're giving me a good idea.
So that's Ethan Weiner. Send all your Neumann hate mail to Ethan Weiner at realtraps.com, whatever. Make that U87 claim. Now we're on the hook.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, it's like I actually did a shootout of a bunch of bargain basement mics there last year. I don't think the AT20. I don't think I bought an AT20. I'm gonna go check that video again, but I don't think that was it. I don't know. That's a great.
If you get a chance to watch Vern Grainer's stuff, you'll be blown away what the 2020 can do. And most of the time, he's using the onboard DSP of Behringer XR18 to pull that off live on the air.
Cool.
Which is, he uses that stereo Y Combinator or whatever. I'm like, I don't even know what that thing does, so I don't know.
Right on. Okay, gentlemen, I think we got to wrap it up there. We're almost out of time on our Zoom call. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show. And to you guys out there, if you've got comments, questions, or something you'd like us to tackle in the next roundtable, we're definitely open to suggestions. For one, like I said, I think I'm going to grab an AT2020, do a review on that, because I think that's going to be something worth seeing. Thanks so much for being on the show, guys. And for all you guys out there, go get some acoustic treatment and clean your rooms up. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to mixing.
There you go.
Ethan and Aaron, thanks so much for being on the show. I'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care. Thanks. That was great.